Hello, my friends. This is part 7 in a series of videos on the evidence-based practice versus science. And we have found out that vibrational astrology is an evidence-based practice, and part of an evidence-based practice is to have a theoretical framework. And fortunately, we have a very clear, comprehensive and beautifully integrated theoretical framework for vibrational astrology. I have, in the previous video, described the first 4 components of the theoretical framework for vibrational astrology. Let's review what they are. Number 1, that astrological variables produce measurable effects. Number 2, that dimension reduction is a fundamental process that makes astrology exist and work. Number 3, what the ascendant, tropical, zero, Aries, midheaven, and vertex are and why they are important. We understand that based on these fundamental principles that underlie astrology, and we understand why there are 12 zodiac signs, each of 30 degrees. By the way, this fourth point, I didn't mention in the previous video about it, not only do these embedded numbers, these structure that and patterns within prime numbers and Fibonacci numbers create 12 sections of 30 degrees, they also create the nakshatras, which are 27 sections of 3 degrees 20 minutes that are used in Vedic astrology, suggesting that nakshatras really exist as well. Fascinating. Well, we don't need to get into all that right now, but you get certain. What is relevant and interesting at this point in our studies is that by having this clear framework, it suggests what other things may be important that we might want to explore. And this strongly suggests that nakshatras actually really do exist, but in a different way from how they're described in Vedic astrology. We'll get to that at some future point. Okay. But our point here is the implications from the theoretical framework guide us in our understanding and they guide us in understanding how astrology works. Fifth part, and by the way, I broke this into certain, numbered items for the theoretical framework. They're not necessarily in this order. This is just the order that I put them in, and they overlap to some extent. So, but anyway, as I've laid it out here, our fifth point is about houses, the nature of houses, and that there are 4 divisions of space. What the tropical zodiac is, it's divisions of space. And there are 4 divisions of space. The tropical zodiac, which we discussed, the way that these embedded patterns of prime numbers and Fibonacci numbers get distributed. They get distributed in 12 sections of 30 degrees and some other patterns as well. And because the tropical zodiac, the houses are essentially the same thing, the tropical zodiac is just where one particular great circle, the celestial equator, intersects the ecliptic plane, and houses happen to be where another great circle intersects the ecliptic plane, the great circle of the celestial horizon. They are fundamentally the same kind of thing. They're built out of the same principles. Therefore, we suspect that wherever a great circle intersects the ecliptic plane, we have powerful points. Astrology confirms that. And we have the same embedded structures in space. So the equal house system, starting from the ascendant and having 30-degree sections that are all 12 sections of 30 degrees, starting from the ascendant, makes perfect sense theoretically based on our theoretical framework. If the theoretical framework is true, we don't know if it's true, but if it's true, it implies extremely strongly that equal houses exist. because the principle is that these power points that are created from dimension reduction, and as a consequence of the way that numbers are embedded within spin, within the angular momentum, it's creating these structures in space. Then we would expect it should create them from the ascendant, just like it creates them from tropical zero areas. So the equal house system is something we expect to exist based on our theoretical framework. Now, if we do research and the research does not support that equal houses exist, and maybe supports that something else exists, then we have to abandon or change or modify our theoretical framework. So far, our research is reinforcing that this is true, and we're ending up with a beautiful system where the theoretical framework, the research, the application of the research with clients all fit together and agree with each other. So in vibrational astrology, we use equal houses. Also, according to our theoretical framework, equal houses should be created from the midheaven and the vertex. So there are 4 divisions of space: the tropical zodiac, equal houses. When we say equal houses, we mean equal houses from the ascendant, equal houses from the midheaven, and equal houses from the vertex. To make the names shorter, we don't have to say that whole thing. We can just say that the house systems are equal, MC, and vertex. The MC houses and the vertex houses are also equal houses, but just to use the traditional language that's always been used, we can call the ascendant houses equal houses. So we have equal, midheaven, and vertex houses. They're all equal house systems, but we can use that terminology. Equal, midheaven, and vertex. And the tropical zodiac is really just like another house system. So the difference between a zodiac and houses is kind of subtle, and they're functionally very, very similar. Okay, so we have the tropical zodiac, equal houses, midheaven houses, and vertex houses. And our research is confirming that, yes, that's true. So the 5th point we have in our theoretical framework is that it provides a basis for understanding what the correct house systems are and why they exist. Now, what about quadrant houses? Astrologers have been using Placidus houses and Regiomontanus, and they get good results with it. Well, here's what we conclude. Quadrant houses appear to work because they are a hybrid of equal houses and midheaven houses. They're a hybrid. Using midheaven houses, the midheaven is the 10th house cusp. Using equal houses, the ascendant is the beginning of the 1st house. It's like a reduced or simplified version, and in that reduced and simplified version, a distortion of what's actually happening, which is that there are 3 house systems. And there are huge problems with quadrant houses. The huge problem is that the ascendant and midheaven can be conjunct each other. They can be conjunct each other in cities where there are hundreds of thousands of people. So it's not some theoretical problem like nobody lives in these places. So on the Arctic Circle, there are large cities like Rovaniemi in Finland. It's over 100,000 people there. Babies are born there. Things are happening. There's an airport right on the Arctic Circle. And twice a day on the Arctic Circle, not only do the houses get distorted in size, but the ascendant is conjunct the midheaven and 6 houses disappear. There are huge problems with quadrant houses. They seem to work despite the huge problems. They seem to work because the midheaven is powerful and it is the 10th cusp of the midheaven house system. So, it's a lot of information, but the main thing I want you to get from this, even if you can't remember every detail of what I'm saying, is that we have a solid theoretical framework. That solid theoretical framework resolves many, many confusing issues in astrology. So we have something that's so beautiful. It's beautiful because it's simple, it's clear, it's consistent, it's consistent with ideas in physics, it's consistent with our intuition. It works beautifully with your clients. It just all fits together. And it shows how a lot of the ideas used in astrology do have truth to them. Hopefully, any field of inquiry improves over time. So we're just improving upon the traditions that we inherited. Now, in the bottom paragraph here, there's you might say a fifth zodiac. You can call them zodiacs or house systems. There's a fifth division. But we'll use the usual language. We have a tropical zodiac. We have 3 house systems. And also the Draconic Zodiac is valid because it is also an intersection of a very important great circle with the ecliptic plane, and that great circle is the path of the moon. Because the sun and moon are the same size in the sky, because they're different from other planets, the sun and moon have a special fundamental importance, and the path of the moon is more fundamental in a sense than the path of the other planets. The moon is a totally different kind of object. It's a satellite of the Earth. It's going around the Earth. For various reasons, the moon has a special place that functions differently from the planets, and the path of the moon is very important. So where the great circle of the moon's path intersects the ecliptic plane is also powerful, and it creates another zodiac, which we call the Draconic Zodiac. And when we talk about the nodes, everybody knows about the true node versus mean node debate. There's some confusions about this, and I have some tutorial videos. But number one, the mean node was not the node that was universally used in ancient times. That's just not true. No matter how often astrologers say it, it's not true. So just to make that clear. It's not like, oh, I'll use the mean node because that's what people used for thousands of years. No, they didn't. They used some various calculations, very often which don't match exactly with the mean node or true node, because they didn't have the accuracy of calculations we have. So none of their calculations matched as well. So anyway, sometimes they used a kind of a mean node, and sometimes they had a kind of a true node, not calculated as accurately. And the true node is where the path of the moon intersects the ecliptic plane. I have confirmed that in some tutorial videos using spherical trigonometry. It is true, that's where it is. And the mean node really has no clear basis for it at all, as I explained in the videos. We won't get into all that right now, but we do use the true node in vibrational astrology for multiple reasons, and we'll get into that later. If you're a great believer in the mean node, that's fine. We'll get into all that later and discuss it. For now, I just want you to know that we use the true node. It's consistent with our theories. We validated that it is the intersection point of the moon's path with the ecliptic plane, and the mean node is just not. It's not even an average position that it supposedly is, but it isn't even that. Not in any obvious way. I mean, it is an average position, but in a kind of bizarre way. Now, point number 6 in our theoretical framework is that vibration is essential in nature, and it's essential to astrology. And to appreciate this idea that vibration is essential, it helps to think about what the physical world is. So we have tables and chairs and trees and all kinds of things around us. We tend to think of a lot of these things as solids, and like they're very compressed and very, they're like a table, a rock. It's a compressed solid thing. But actually, it's not as solid as it seems. It's solid to us as human beings, but even a rock, even lead, like the most dense thing you can think of, is really not so solid. It's 99% space. So you have the protons and neutrons and electrons, and the space between them is enormous. So the actual world is over 99% space. So, and also interesting is that this is a kind of a fractal reality that there's mostly space is true at every level. When you look at the molecules, they're mostly space. The distance between the the different electrons, which take up most of the space, is enormous. Our solar system is mostly space. If you scaled our solar system to the size of a football field, the sun would be the size of a light bulb. The Earth would be the size of a marble. The minor planets and asteroids are like fleas. Some of them like no-see-ums, those little things you can't even see. Our solar system is mostly space. Then if you compare our solar system and the next sun, there's mostly space. So at every level, we mostly have space. And what we think is solid, the protons, neutrons, and electrons, the electrons are more like probability waves. Some people call them wavicles, like they're not really particles. They're kind of like waves. So they made this word wavicle. It's like there's something immaterial, something cloudy about the nature of matter when you look at it in detail. So the bottom line is that even though things look stable, my table is not moving, and they look hard, and if I bang my hand against them, my hand will hurt, it's all much more subtle and much more fluid and much more dynamic. All those electrons and everything are moving very rapidly, and actually we never touch anything. If I clap my hands together, I feel like my hands are touching, but it's actually the force fields that surround matter. So the nature of reality when we dig deep, and again our idea is that astrology operates from a very deep level, from a level that we don't perceive. It comes, it's operational at this higher dimensions, which we don't even, aren't even consciously aware of, is that in this realm of subatomic level of looking at things, or the grand level of looking at solar systems and galaxies and so on, vibration is everywhere. Frequency, vibration. So we live in an intricate, complex, beautiful tapestry of vibration. Vibration is at the essence of it. And if you look at things like Middle Eastern mosaics, fractal art, intricacies of so many art forms and architecture, they reflect the intricate and beautiful and stunningly beautiful nature of the world we live in. And that is what vibrational astrology is revealing. Vibrational astrology is essentially the same as a Middle Eastern or an Indian mandala, the mosaics and mandalas that are so intricate and beautiful, and the cathedrals and so on that have these intricate designs. That's what vibrational astrology is. It is those frequencies and patterns and interweaving waves. Okay, so that's a sixth principle of vibrational astrology, that we live in a vibrational universe and that these vibrations are fundamental. Number 7, excuse me, and this overlaps, a lot of these ideas now begin to overlap, is that vibrational astrology is in a lineage of ideas that people, I'll just give you some names, Johannes Kepler. It's consistent with the thinking of Johannes Kepler, that there are a music of the spheres. Among spiritual teachers, Paramahansa Yogananda, when you read his book, Autobiography of a Yogi, he has great praise and he puts on an exalted level the great scientists. So he sees science as the human mind perceiving into the nature of reality, and not seeing science as something that conflicts with spiritual development, but is an expression one path in spiritual development. And we have today a number of people working in science who also work in this tradition that mysticism and science are one continuous spectrum, that there's no conflict between them. Examples of people working in this tradition are Rupert Sheldrake, Nassim Haramein, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and many, many others. So, seventh point about the theoretical framework for vibrational astrology is that our theoretical framework is consistent, it's compatible, it's integrated in with many other related fields, and people like Sheldrake, Harriman, Braden, and Lipton are popular speakers on, you might say, the New Age circuit, which, anything alternative can be called New Age, such as vibrational astrology. We have a lot of friends. We're very consistent friends theoretically. We're in the same paradigm that they are in. And by the way, the movement of people like Rupert Sheldrake, Nassim Haramein, and so on is larger than the movements in the main astrology groups. So if you go to an astrology conference and there are 400 or 500 people, they consider it to be a very large gathering. It's not unusual for thousands of people to come to lectures by these other kinds of people. So vibrational astrology does not sit very comfortably with other systems of astrology because they are not evidence-based, they are not compatible with science, they're not curious, interested, they're not working within that paradigm, they're not working within that lineage. So in vibrational astrology, we are joining together and we are comfortable and we are appropriately connected with this large movement that has existed throughout history and exists today. So we are now in the process of connecting with these people. I've already had extensive not extensive, maybe half a dozen to a dozen emails with Rupert Sheldrake and some of the other people. So that's part of the world that we live in. And I want to read this first sentence on this slide. The physicist Richard Feynman said that he does not get to decide what nature is, he only gets to discover what she is. So what we're saying in vibrational astrology is that this is what astrology is. This is how it works. This is how we understand it. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe it doesn't matter whether we like it or we prefer it. We don't get to decide. So some people just say, well, I was never good in that stuff. Well, it doesn't matter whether you were good in it or not, and actually it doesn't require much number crunching or anything like that anyway. That goes on behind the scenes. But it doesn't matter what we like, it's a matter of what is. And using this approach to astrology that we call vibrational astrology, we are able to come up with rules for astrology that work in our research, and they work beautifully with our clients. So, and everything fits together, and it removes a lot of cognitive dissonance. So one of the things we try to do in vibrational astrology is we face head on anything that contradicts, and there's still many contradictions. There's never ending number of contradictions. We try to resolve those and see if we can build a system where everything fits together without contradictions. And as you can see already, the success we've had is amazing. It's amazing to me that we've gotten this far. Now, point number 8 in our theoretical framework. What about archetypes? One of the basic ideas in modern astrology is archetypes. Some people use this word in almost every sentence. The archetype of Venus, a youthful feminine beauty. The archetype of Mars, the warrior. Some people are calling Uranus the archetype of Prometheus. We have archetypes. The idea of the archetype is that there's a kind of a universal thought form, and astrology works through these universal thought forms, these images and stories. Well, here is the view of vibrational astrology. The view of vibrational astrology is that astrology does not work directly as archetypes. Venus is not the archetype of feminine beauty. And astrology does not work by associations. So people may say that Taurus they have a lot of associations. Taurus can be sensual. It can be, steady. It can be businesslike. It can be well-grounded. We just have a lot of associations. But in vibrational astrology, we believe the astrology does not work by an archetype or a lot of associations fundamentally. Those archetypes exist. They are important to learn about. It can improve your astrology to study and understand how they work. They're good. They're just not the essential part of astrology. They are a symptom of something else. What underlies the archetypes is vibration. Vibration is the mechanism through which astrology works. And the vibrations, these frequencies, they're not just like mechanical, like they just vibrate and they have a purpose. It's almost like they're almost intelligent. They have a purpose. They have a goal. They have a reason. And they have an energetic quality. The archetypes are in our human minds. The planets are not archetypes. They're sending off vibrations, frequencies in space. 99% of existence. They exist in a higher dimensional level. They are part of a sacred geometry. They're part of a spiritual realm that underlies our physical world. As these vibrations with their motivations and their meanings and their purposes interact and develop within the human mind, we develop archetypal stories. And these archetypal stories that we develop in our minds, in our conscious minds and our unconscious minds, are fueled by the astrological vibrations, and they are fueled by our life experiences. So archetypes are not in the sky. So vibrations are in the sky. Vibrations in a fractal reality, in a repeating sequence. So vibrations in a fractal reality that resonate from the cosmos to our personal lives are what exist as the primary things in nature. Archetypes are secondary, and they're born from vibrations and our life experiences. Now, you might think this is just philosophical, but it makes a huge difference in your interpretations. Huge. It's not just philosophical. This is very practical, because when you're with a client and you see Venus doing something, Venus has a purpose. It's attraction to beauty. We look at it and we see how the person is attracted to beauty, and from those dynamics, from those motivations, from those purposes, from those experiences that develop from those dynamics, we see how the archetypal stories are born. So, it gets to the heart of what's going on in the astrology. Now, this idea that archetypes are not the mechanism through which astrology works, but they are extremely important in the way they develop in a person's life, this idea, ironically, is more consistent with the ideas of Carl Jung than if we said that astrology works archetypally. And you may go, what? Because Carl Jung is the person who developed this whole theory of archetypes, and you're saying that this approach is more Jungian than Jungian astrology? That sounds like totally contradictory. Yes, because at the end of Jung's life, he was searching for an integration of science and psychology. That was his passion. And he wanted to find an understanding of life where astrology and science and mysticism could all integrate together in a coherent understanding. This was his passion. He also writes about what he feels is missing most in astrology is research. So it's not that the archetypal thinking replaces or was above or was more fundamental to astrology. No, to Jung, there should be some total integrated understanding in which archetypes, science, and mysticism would all fit together in a kind of one world view. And that's what vibrational astrology does. So vibrational astrology is in the vision that Jung had. Okay. So I think we're at a half hour again. We've got a few more things to say. Let's stop here and let's finish the theoretical framework for vibrational astrology in another video. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thank you very much, my friends. God bless. Namaste.